retired from chess. My good friend Anatoly Karpov is here to discuss with us not only the games of this historic event, but the events surrounding the match, the results that it had on the chess world afterwards. Anatoly, welcome to the show.
Hello. So in 1972, of course, the world attention was just close to this match, and that time I was already strong grandmaster. So I had some big victories like Moscow All-Star Tournament, like Hastings 71. And during this match, I was playing in Austria in Student Chess Olympiad, and we were watching closely what was happening. One of the games which we shall analyze today, I remember since that time because we were impressed by Fischer play in this Tartakover-Makagonov Bondarevsky variation. And I remember this like
Fischer playing white played c4, which was virtually unprecedented. He always played e4 throughout his career. In fact, there's an interesting story. We had a Chess Life cover with all these books stacked up around Spassky and his seconds and everything. And at the bottom, it's like, but Boris, what if he doesn't play 1 e4? And it turned out this is very prophetic because Fischer played c4.
Fischer took into consideration that Spassky, after c4 or d4, played mostly Queen's Gambits. Queen's Gambit, Makagonov Tartakover variation, and or Tarash, which he fantastically defended in match with Petrosyan. But on the other side, it's easy to prepare, and so Fischer decided to play c4.
Well, actually, what you're talking about is quite true, because Ed Edmondson, one of the colorful characters and representatives of Fischer's entourage, the current U.S. executive director, said that he'd talked to Bobby, and when Bobby was down in Argentina, he had the Velkoschek book that had 600 of Spassky's games, and he'd gone through every game, and he'd said that eventually Spassky would go home to like the Tartakower defense, when he felt like he was in trouble. And so when he did go home, Fischer was waiting for him.
Yeah. So knight f3. d5, then d4, knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop g5, castle. No, first castle. Now people play h6 first. They believe it's more precise. But that time it was e3, h6, bishop h4, b6, then pawn takes d5.
And now he takes with the knight.
Yes, this is clear. So now people prefer to wait when black would develop bishop on b7 and then they exchange on d5. That time Fischer played quite simple, and so bishop takes e7. So it doesn't promise too much. It's possible even to take with the knight here, but queen takes e7 also
and
possible.
Now Fischer took.
Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, rook c1, bishop e6.
And here Fischer played queen a4.
Yes, Fischer played queen a4. And so nowadays what I could say? I could say that black would play a5, which is...
this threatens queen b4 check already with
yes,
good counterplay.
These pawns are not in good shape, and if you play a3, then c5 is possible. And then you don't have this idea to pin on diagonal a3, e7. Then you just develop knight to d7 or rook to c8.
But in 1972, technique was not so developed, and so many of these nuances weren't so well understood.
Yes, of course, theory is going forward, and so we know much better than even Fischer and Spassky that time.
So Spassky played c5, d takes c5, b takes c5.
And then queen a3. This is nice move.
And so, because of the diagonal pin, he has to protect himself. And now Fischer played bishop to b5, which is kind of strange because the bishop's just like kind of out there. But on the other hand, it is arresting the black knight on b8.
Yes, this is a problem. Knight d7 is not possible because because then we just, what we do?
Well, either bishop a6 or knight d4 is
Knight
happens
d4
later.
most probably, yes. Knight d4 unpleasant. And so Spassky played a6.
Which is kind of strange because he's putting the question to the bishop, but because of the pin, the bishop doesn't really have to move yet. So Fischer just went ahead and castled. And now Spassky played rook a7, so the rook is defended.
Rook a7, yes, this is. But later people played queen f8 or king f8, just to defend queen on e7.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes queen f8. Okay, then rook a7, but rook a7.
And now Fischer brought the bishop back to e2. And here Spassky played knight to d7, was not the most exact move. Again, you said that you'd liked a5, offering good counterplay. You pointed out to me, I asked you about king f8 once, and you said that queen d3 could be dangerous because then...
No, not immediately, but at a certain moment, white would always have this tempo, queen d3. Maybe first rook f to d1. But there is no sense now to play king f8 because queen is protected by rook from a7. And in such type of positions, it's almost always nice to have pawn on a5. Because then you can play a4 at certain moment just to fix this pawn on b2. And if white played b3, you can have always counterattack with a4. And then you prevent b4. But Spassky played knight to d7.
And in general, again, Spassky was maybe just a shade careless here.
Yes. And so knight to d4.
And with this very nice move, Fischer attacks the bishop, and he also takes advantage of the pin on the c-pawn, double pin.
And so now it starts to be unpleasant.
Well, here Spassky played queen f8.
Queen f8, which was not the best. But on the other hand, what to do? If you play knight f6 here,
then knight
to b3,
and the c-pawn gets
c-pawn.
And then, for example, after c4, you could simply exchange queens. Rook takes, and then the knight can come back to this very nice blockading square. And of course, this is not winning, but it's very pleasant for white.
Yes, and also it's very dangerous because then you just double rooks, and then you play b3. You start to attack this pawn on c4, and at the end you will get c file, and knight on d4 is just untouchable. Queen to f8. And then Fischer demonstrated just very easy and very simple way how to get advantage. F takes e6 and then e4.
And this is an e4 move. This is really the move that really made the whole position click for white.
Yes, look, if black takes on e4 now, then what kind of pawn structure black has? One island, two islands, 3, 4. Terrible.
And then one more over here.
Yes, and white has only two pawn structures.
Capablanca would be proud.
Yes, and so of course it's difficult to allow, and so it's difficult to allow exchange also because these pawns were weak.
And they would be subject to captured with check.
Yes, many possibilities. Bishop g4, this pin. So too many possibilities. So Spassky decided to play d4. But then it's very unpleasant. He had no time to play e5 because Fischer played f4 immediately, and so he could prevent e6, e5. Spassky played queen to e7.
And now here Fischer played very nicely. He played e5 immediately and just froze that pawn on e6.
Yes, and so it's difficult to play in this position. So most probably king h8 would be the best. Rook b8, which was just loss of tempo, clear loss of tempo. Bishop c4. And so now what to do? If knight b6, attacking bishop, but then rook on b8 is very bad. And white has two options, queen b3, attacking pawn on a6.
And pinning the knight.
And pinning the knight. Or even queen takes c5. And then queen cannot take on c5, bishop takes e6. Discovered check.
And this would win 2 pawns. So you said in this variation, black would have nothing better than to play knight takes on c4.
Yes, but then queen takes c4 better. Rook takes b2. And then queen takes d4. Is a very dangerous position.
And you pointed out this is very unpleasant because you have one very good extra pawn. And when he tries to recapture the pawn, then the punishment for weakening his back rank and his king position would be rook c8 check. And after king here, or here, move like f5 or queen e4 check with a very dangerous attack.
Yes. After bishop c4,
knight on b6.
Spassky decided to play king h8. But then queen h3.
Well, now Fischer is offering up this pawn, but if he takes this one, he'll take the pawn on e6, and then these two guys are going to roll in against the black king.
Yes, and these two pawns are blockaded, and then it's very difficult to defend king's position.
So in the game,
so Spassky decided,
knight e3.
Knight f8.
Knight f8.
Knight f8, this is the only move.
Well, his dream was to play knight e3.
Yes, not only his.
But his reality was he played knight f8.
And so, simply b3. Then Spassky played a5, but he never had time to play a4.
Well, Fischer struck first on this side with f5, threatening f6, absolutely destroying the black king side. So when he took, Fischer took with the rook, not only protecting his pawn, but as you pointed out earlier, threatening rook f7, zapping the queen against the rook, and gaining a tempo to double rooks on the f-file.
And so, still black has defense after knight h7. Rook f7 doesn't work because of knight g5 and
knight takes queen with check.
Yes, move in between.
Very clever.
So rook f1, and then the only defense, queen d8. So at this moment, queen g3.
And now Spassky tries to bring his rook over, try and create some defense. But here,
h4.
Fischer adopts the best of Petrosian. He just keeps taking away his chances, and then one day he comes forward.
No, he shows that knight on h7 has no future. Look, e5 takes control over f6, h4 over g5,
so
and
actually,
2 rooks on f8. So knight is just out of play.
So all he needs to do is attack it, and it's gone.
Yeah. So what happens at the end?
Well, he played rook at b to b7. And now he played e6. And now it becomes very dangerous to put the knight in on f6 because he has to consider the sacrifice. But first, he attacks the c-pawn.
Even I think in such positions, white win may be much easier. I think like queen f3. And then what to do? Our next move, our threat is to play h5 and then to come to f8 with mate.
And you have bishop d3
with
later.
Mate continuation, yeah. But of course, this position is so easy to win. So many plans.
First, he threatens the c5 pawn. So he played rook at b to c7. And now he played queen e5. So he played queen e8. Knight f6 now, of course, he could just take it. Takes and rook takes with a tremendous attack against the king. So he played queen e8. And now he played a4 on the queen side.
Yeah, it was not necessary, but not bad.
But once again, we see Spassky in a position where he has nothing left but to shuffle his pieces back and forth.
Yes, position is very passive.
So he played queen d8. Fischer simply played rook at 1 to f2. He played queen e8.
And then Fischer played
rook at 2 to f3. Queen d8. And now Bobby played bishop to d3. And we start to see him line up the bishop against this knight.
Yes.
And after queen e8, now Bobby played queen e4. And the simple threat is to play rook f8 check. And after knight takes, rook takes, and then queen h7 mate.
Yes.
And not only simple, but this is very powerful. Spassky did not see what to do.
No, knight f6 is the only defense in this case.
And
but then rook takes f6, pawn takes, rook takes, king g8,
and
then bishop c4. Yes, again, bishop comes to this very strong position.
So in the game, he played king h because he wants to get out of the line, and now in rook takes pawn check, he has the idea to interpose his rook.
Yes. But so two possibilities. Fischer had chosen queen f4.
Mm-hmm. Rook f7 was also very strong.
Yes, it's winning also. Maybe it's even more nice, but doesn't matter when you have winning position. So which way you choose.
Queen f4 is very strong because it threatens rook f8 check, queen takes, and then bishop d3 mate, right?
Yes, and if king g8, then
on
queen takes
h6 threatens simply rook g6 check. And we know that the problem is he can never defend with this rook because then
e7 check.
Check, and this bishop just comes to life.
Yeah.
And so basically the problems he has is that his king is surrounded by all the white pieces, and his own pieces can't really come to the rescue.
Yes, it's absolutely hopeless.
And so this game gave Fischer a lead for the first time in the match, and it was also considered an absolutely wonderful creative achievement. And even again today, this is still considered a classic model of, middle game play.
Yes, this was a very interesting game, and Fischer showed that he could play not only open